Hey guys, Aaron Wilson, NRG Stadium. Texans quarterback for the week, Davis Mills again, QB1 against Tennessee Titans, as I've been reporting, expecting and anticipating that he would be the guy. And what this means for the Texans is obviously you have a healthy quarterback. CJ Stroud still has concussion symptoms, and last week a sensitivity light, this week headaches. So until the protocol is cleared, he can't play football. So there is no quarterback controversy. It's your best quarterback. And I know a lot of people have talked about, well, let's ride the hot hand, all those things. Davis Mills had an outstanding game against the Jaguars, and I think that's where it stands. This is what backups do. When Brock Purdy's ready to play for the 49ers, he'll be their quarterback, not Mac Jones. It's a similar situation. CJ Stroud is still your best quarterback. That said, the reality for the Texans this week is the football is in the hands of Davis Mills and really the direction of the season and whatever, kind of slim playoff hopes they have. So if they can reach the 5-5 milestone, not a high milestone, but a milestone, if they can be a 500 team, if the Jaguars lose ground, and they've split the series, the Texans have an opportunity to be in the wild card mix. And we don't know. They beat Buffalo Bills last year. The Bills lost to the Dolphins, who aren't a very good football team, obviously. So it's hard to just discount the Texans completely. We're going to know everything we need to know in the next 4 games. I repeat, everything we need to know about the Texans and their ability to compete and whether they're a viable playoff team. And I think at this point, if they can at least just make the playoffs and salvage the season, which, obviously they entered the year with Super Bowl ambitions, and obviously those were not realistic and probably need to be put away somewhere in some kind of cupboard and not talked about again. They have to improve the roster vastly before they can be discussed as a Super Bowl contender again. But let's just stick with the news, and that's kind of what I'm known for. And just want to give you guys the latest information and the truth about the team as it stands. So as you all know, and as I've posted, anyone that wasn't paying attention, CJ Stroud is out. Kaimi Fairburn is out with a quadriceps injury. Said that last week when they signed Matthew Wright to the 53-man roster. It was with the understanding that the quadriceps injury was going to linger for more than 1 week. So he's going to kick again for the Texans, Matt Wright. And he made all of his kicks last week. They didn't really challenge him other than extra points and a 23-yard field goal, but he made his kicks. Kickoffs were okay. Jalen Petrie, who also has symptoms, including headaches, he's still in the concussion protocol, and he will not play. Another X factor for the Texans in terms of health involves Dalton Schultz. So Dalton Schultz not only has a shoulder injury, but he has an illness. So we'll see, does he feel well enough to play football for the Texans this week? So that's something that we are monitoring. His pattern has been to practice, just on Fridays and then play, and he's been dealing with some injuries. And I don't know when he's going to get 100% healthy. I kind of wonder, despite them being so shorthanded at tight end, because Harrison Bryant hasn't practiced all week due to neck and shoulder. But yes, he practiced last week and then he played in the game. So might they do that again? That's possible that the Texans would go in that direction again. But those are the DNPs, the did not practice guys. So we're monitoring that. There is no concern about Denico Autry, who practiced today on a limited basis, had 1 day off, or Ed Ingram, or Jake Hansen, or Davis Mills for that matter, who participated fully as a left elbow injury, not his throwing arm. So kind of sticking with this health theme that I'm on. Aziz Al-Shaair with a knee, full participation. Braxton Berrios, quadriceps, full participation. Christian Harris, shin injury, full participation. Titus Howard, I'm kind of bearing the lead a little bit. He cleared the concussion protocol, told me that he is feeling much better, and he has practiced. So he is cleared, good to go, and they should get back the entire right side of the offensive line. Titus Howard at right tackle, Ed Ingram at right guard. I think it's going to be Jared Patterson at left guard. And with Petrie out, their top option at nickel is Miles Bryant. That's where he was playing. And they have the 3 linebacker set. If they do that, I kind of think he's going to be the safety if they do the 3 linebacker. If they do the nickel, and then if they have to have another safety, combination of having Jalen Reed, Jalen Mills, I think it's going to be elevated. Another update I want to give you guys, I believe they're going to activate on Saturday Cade Stover from designated to return to active roster. And he looks great out there. I think that he's going to be good to go. Who knows? Maybe they have, if they don't get Schultz and or Bryant back, maybe they have Luke Lachey or Jakob Johnson. So they have some leeway there. Jakob needs to have a 53-man spot. Lachey could be a practice squad elevation. What if they elevated him and Jalen Mills, who's been a veteran safety and a starter for several teams, including the Eagles. So we'll see, and the Patriots. I think they probably would lean vet, but no matter what happens, they're going to count on Bryant, who I've done some interviews with, and to ask DeMeco Ryans about his versatility. So going back to the most important one, the top spot, quarterback, Davis Mills, the way he played in the fourth quarter, certainly winning football and good enough to beat the 1-8 Titans. So for the Texans, people ask me, would they overlook them? I don't think they would overlook anybody. They didn't exactly, they did shut them out, but it was all late in the game what they did against the Titans. So to think that they're going to take them lightly, that's just not realistic. They've got Jeffrey Simmons. He's back at practice from a hamstring injury. They've got Tavondre Sweat. Those guys are tough to block. Remember that ugly play where they had three guys trying to block one guy, and then they don't block Simmons? He gets one of the fastest sacks in the NFL per next-gen stats in recent memory. So not good. Since then, do I think the offensive line's improved? Yes, I think Arion Tertiary's improved. I think that Titus Howard's having a pretty good season. I think Ed Ingram's having a pretty good season. They've gotten solid play from Jake Andrews. It's a work in progress, right? And we're seeing an uptick in playing time for Woody Marks as a starter. And we'll get more into the matchups and some of these things. But the biggest things is talking about availability, health, personnel, and kind of getting through this 1 week, and then they can deal with next week. Next week, in terms of what are they going to do about the C.J. Stroud versus Davis Mills question? It's going to come up, especially if they win this game. It's going to be tempting to give C.J. Stroud 3 full weeks. Short week is tough, man. Practice on Monday, not much of a practice. Tuesday, Wednesday is the day off / walkthrough and night at the hotel. Then Thursday night football here in NRG Stadium against the Buffalo Bills, the team they beat last year. And it'll be exciting to see that. So what they want to see from Davis Mills, talking to DeMeco Ryans, continued improvement. Thought he did a nice job of leading them last week. Wants to see him execute the offense. Offensive line needs to communicate. Says they'll put out the best 5 guys. I've been asked this question. I am not anticipating them not playing at Ingram so that they can play Trent Brown at right tackle or benching someone over at the left side so that Titus Howard can play left guard. I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility? No, you can't think that it's out of the realm because they're the same group that started Sidney Sal. I repeat, Sidney Sal started and played 9 snaps. He was absolutely overwhelmed, incapable of doing his job, looked very rusty, couldn't move very well. They had to get him out of there. Okay. I don't think they're going to do anything wild like that again. I thought they were a bit experimental. I thought Trent Brown played very well. He played to the best of his abilities as a 6'8", 380-pound guy. Pretty tough guy. He's gotten through this hobbled ankle with x-rays negative, and he's practicing. He's a good backup. But that's where it kind of needs to end. And I think he's done a good job of mentoring Ursary, and you're seeing development from Ursary. He's starting to improve. But, big thing is we're talking about the offensive line. They got to block these guys. Easier said than done in terms of Simmons, in terms of Sweat. 2 heavyweights that they're messing with. And when you grapple with guys like that, you got to bring everything you had. So for now, it doesn't look like they're going back to Laken Tomlinson or Drew Scruggs. So Patterson, consistent, smart player. They're feeling pretty good about Patterson. So we'll see how that goes. Like I said before about Bryant, they like his intelligence. He's not a real tall guy, but he's a versatile guy. He's played outside corner. He's played safety. He's played nickel. So they just really like him and what he's all about, and that they can count on him. That's a big thing. Accountability, reliability, durability, availability, all those things, all the abilities. That's what you got to have. So they like him. We've seen some very cool moves. We talked with Will Anderson Jr., talked about Danielle Hunter especially what he did against the Lions last year, some of those Euro step NBA style spin moves. He calls it a jab step. Other people call it the Euro step. They are special. Wrote about him earlier in the week. Wrote about this extensively last year about some of these cool moves from Danielle Hunter. Again, talking about the concussion protocol with D'Amico Ryans. He says, everybody's different. There is no concussion that's the same. So like Titus Howard, I asked him about his symptoms. You can see that in the other video that's up on Texans Sights and Sounds, that what he had was nausea, couldn't sleep, extreme headaches, migraines. And so he had those situations, and it was hard for him to get his proper amount of rest. And so he needed to take the week off. Very rarely are you going to see anyone in the NFL nowadays play 1 week after a concussion. Not with the sensitivity about CTE and the concussion litigation, all those things. So don't expect that. And you think about, the backup quarterback, if you needed him, hopefully that doesn't happen, but you've got Graham Mertz ready to go in case you don't have Davis Mills for some reason, if he was to get injured in the game, which is possible. Football's 100% injury rate. So Mertz, they said he's challenging the defense. He's really ripping some throws. They feel like he's a good young quarterback. I like what he did in Detroit when we were there for that preseason game. A lot better than he looked in Minnesota, where I thought he was overwhelmed. He was in over his head, kind of drowning out there, honestly. But also some guys were failing him with the bad routes they were running. So this is a game still. You're playing against Cam Ward, as Will Anderson Jr. and D'Amico Ryans both said. A talented young quarterback, and he was drafted first overall for a reason. And so from a Miami guy, Washington State, Incarnate Word, of course, locally here in the Houston high school football scene, a tough quarterback to play against in terms of what he can do in the pocket, how he can buy time to make plays. So you see him trying to settle down. Stats are bad, yes, but you're seeing him at the start of his career. Stats were bad for Peyton Manning when he began his career. So, I'm curious to what he's going to become in terms of down the road. So he's an interesting young quarterback and can make those throws, throw it across his body, can buy time. Mobility is a big factor for him. Got to work on his accuracy. Has to work on his understanding of the defenses. All those things that a young quarterback goes through, and he's having those growing pains now. But they're trying to build something in Tennessee, and I think Tyjae Spears playing this time makes the game a little tougher. One guy that kind of makes the game really go for the Texans, and that's Aziz Al-Shaair, who was, I think, fined unfairly for that hit on J.K. Dobbins, saying he hit a defenseless receiver. We'll see if that holds on appeal, and obviously wasn't punished. It was a clean hit. He got his head across. He wasn't hitting him with his helmet. It was a shoulder hit. It was a hard hit, but it was a clean hit. I didn't agree with the fine, but, Aziz, we'll see what he chooses to do about it. He didn't want to even talk about it at all. He's trying to focus on the next thing, and that's the thing. He's a very focused guy, and D'Amico Ryans called him the glue, the heartbeat, the glue of the team, keeps it together. And he says without him, without his leadership, he's not sure where they would be. His mindset, passion, wisdom, very high praise. As D'Amico Ryans says, can't say enough great things about Aziz. Loves him as a person, his growth, his maturity. Very thankful to have him in the locker room. And the mentality, everything. And he says there's not a better guy in the league, he says, than Aziz. And Aziz is one of those guys that's kind of, for people that know him, they really like him. If you don't know him, you don't like him. You think that, generally, I'm generalizing here, a lot of people think he's a dirty player. He's had some borderline things, but I don't think he's ever been a dirty player. I think he's a tough player, a hard-nosed player. And in today's a little bit softer NFL, I think he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb because he's one of those guys that's going to bring the physicality. And he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got a lot of pop. He's a good athlete. He's not great in pass coverage, but he's a run stuffer. And they pay him a lot of money to be basically, the captain and the tough guy, the enforcer of the Texans defense. Way back in the day, I played linebacker, not like him. Gave it everything I had, threw my body around. Still have some injuries to this day that I feel from my old football days as I walk on East Carolina. But Yeah, I appreciate, and I've covered some great linebackers, Ray Lewis, Bart Scott, and of course, Brian Cushing, Aziz Al-Shaair. So yeah, I have kind of sort of an affinity for the position. I like to watch what the linebackers do, especially the hard-hitting linebackers. I enjoyed watching some Denzel Perryman hits when he was here. He wasn't necessarily on those guys' level, but he's a good football player and a tough guy. So yeah, that position I like. That's where I used to play. So hard not to appreciate that. I don't know what video yet DeMeco Ryan's going to show the guys, because he says he's still working on it. He says just he'll sleep on it, he'll have an idea. Last time it was Mikado Henson, the team chaplain's idea, to show that Danny Williams heavyweight fight where he's got a dislocated shoulder, he's out there with one arm, and he jabs, and then knocks the guy out in the 6th round with an uppercut. Danny Williams is the guy that 4 years later upset the great Mike Tyson, knocked him out. I like boxing too. I like where it used to be. And again, I'm dating myself a bit here, but I grew up watching Sugar Ray Leonard and Mike Tyson and Thomas Hitman Hearns and Marvin Hagler, and kind of more of a golden era of boxing, which I know is, not popular anymore. It's more about the UFC and all those things. But yeah, like a good fight, just like to watch a good football game. So for the Texans, if they can get back to 500, they can stabilize their season, and essentially they're going to get themselves on deck to be considered a potential playoff contender. Basically get in position to get into the on-deck circle. And this game doesn't need to be pretty. This game doesn't need to be anything but a win. They've got to take care of business. They cannot lose to the 1-8 Titans. That would just be a crushing outcome. Whatever you got to do, you got to take care of business. And that means taking care of the football. Special teams has to play a lot better. Cannot have the problems that they had this past week, where they basically gifted 14 points. A punt return for a touchdown, unacceptable. And I'm kind of echoing Frank Ross here, the special teams coordinator. I mean, he is embarrassed. He is down in the dumps about this, and he's working overtime to try to fix it. And of course, a fumble by Tremont Smith, and that just can't happen. So a lot of things went on. Of course, DeMeco Ryans did return to practice today. He was not at practice Wednesday as he attended the funeral of the late Earl Cochran, his high school teammate in Bessemer, Alabama, and his teammate with the Texans. So rest in peace. Give my condolences to DeMeco Ryans and everyone that knew and loves Earl Cochran. I didn't know Earl. I covered some of his games when I was working in Baltimore, but I heard great things about him, and it's sad. So going back to Davis, we got his perspective as well. So listening to Davis today discuss what he's expecting, his confidence, his comfortability. I feel like Davis, with having 2 starts in a row, 2 weeks, you can get more out of him. And the Titans, this is not as good as the Jaguars. There's no Eric Armstead. There's maybe not the secondary that the Jaguars have, even though they give some yards and points too. But I feel like with Davis, this is a team he can handle. And we've seen this uptick, and we talked to Nico Collins and Davis Mills. 15 targets. He's going to get the ball. They're going to throw him the ball. If Dalton Schultz is available, he's getting the ball. He had 11 targets this past game, so we're seeing some kind of a tendency from Davis to ride the hot hand. He said he liked the matchups on the outside. So they saw something, and they wanted to attack that. And that's what is going on with that side of the ball. And, you see about the Texans kind of getting out of the huddle a little bit faster, some flow between Nick Caley and Davis, a willingness and an ability from Davis to use his legs, something we didn't see from him really early in his career, but it was there, and he needed to take it. And so you're seeing a good dialogue, a mesh between Caley and Davis, and even when he wasn't playing and CJ was starting, there was still some conversations to ask him even, what are some of your favorite plays? So kind of some of these things had already been discussed, and that helps to have that kind of conversation. In the team meeting, they were talking about the Titans. They talked about how they play hard, and their record's bad, but they're paid to do a job and not take them lightly. So it's interesting those conversations are going on behind the scenes already, because obviously it's on their mind. The coaching staff concerned a little bit. Concerned not in the sense that the players aren't getting the message, but just guarding against that possibility that what if they somehow think, oh, we're just going to roll out there, throw our helmets on the field, and we're going to beat the Titans. I don't think the Texans are good enough, and they've been beaten enough times to think that way. Repeat, I don't think that the Texans think of themselves like we can just do whatever we want. I think there's confidence in the defense. His offense hasn't done enough, scored enough touchdowns, scored enough points to think of themselves that way. The special teams coming off a bad game. And there's been times, too, where I think this defense could have played better. They could have tackled a lot better this year. They could have had less penalties. They've had some coverage lapses. No one's perfect. This is not that kind of team. It's a team that has potential, but you got to look out at the Texans. And they got better on third down. They got better in the red zone. They need to keep getting better. And I don't think from one week to the next we can just say, okay, this is the Texans. We can count on this from them. You know, you think about Davis, and I know he's a quieter, more low-key guy. And I was talking to some of the players about this. They say, you know, you just don't see everything from him in terms of like sense of humor. He's a little at the podium. His interview style is pretty low-key, somewhat a little bit dry. But he says he just doesn't get rattled. And he says, when things happen, they don't bother him too much. He says he likes to control what he can control. And he says his wife even used to get mad at him, Mrs. Mills. And she'd ask him something and want to argue, and he just would not react. And she's like, why are you not mad? And he's like, it is what it is. We'll figure it out. So I like that, steady as he goes. Captain of the ship. And right now, QB1, Davis Mills. And the guy that led that comeback. And that's, really the finest hour of his career so far. Best game, for my money, that Money Mills has ever played. So we'll see. They'll let it ride one more time at least, and maybe next week against Buffalo. But they got to get through this game first. Get to 5-5, and then they can talk about trying to be 6-5. Can't do it all in 1 week. 0-3 start. Since the 0-3 start, now here they are at 4-5. And so they've won 4 of the past 6 games. So they're doing better. And yeah, that's my math's right. I had to count for a second there in my head. I could see the wheels turning. So, to me, the Texans are in an interesting spot. I've gotten some questions about a few things about the stadium. Nothing really new on that. They're in some exploratory talks about potential sites for a new training facility. That wouldn't change much other than my commute to work and a fancier place for the players. It'll be years before they could build something like that once they figure out the site. I don't think it would even be in 2027 necessarily. Maybe. It just depends how ambitious and how developed, if they're building it from the ground up, where they're going to go and what's the pace of the construction. So we'll see. One thing they will not want to do is to move in the middle of the season. So whatever is done, I would think that you'd want to have that ready before the 2027 season or 2028 season. We'll see how that goes. But I think they'll be in a new building there before we see anything really change with the stadium. And as they've said, as the McNair family has said, just to reiterate, the priority is to refurbish NRG Stadium in partnership with Harris County, with the Rodeo, the Stadium Authority, all of those folks. They're partners in this. So we'll see what they come up with. Mike Toman, the Texans' new team president, the McNairs, their lawyers, and all the other entities that they work in partnership with. But yeah, they'd love to have a day where they're not sharing the building, and they'd like to have some more space and some more amenities for the players. One thing the players did get, I don't know if I ever told you this before, because I was asking guys about it today, because they were talking about getting a sauna. Who doesn't like the sauna? Sauna's great. Go to the sauna at my gym. Go to kind of an average Joe's gym. 24-hour fitness. Rice Village, that's my spot. Dunstan Road, good place, good people. It's got what you need. They got a sauna. They got a steam room. They got a swimming pool. They got basketball. They got all these things. 24. Get at me. Maybe we can do some business. And I'm not hard to find for any businesses that want to, talk to me about things. Some of the places I patron includes The Joint, chiropractic place I like to go to. So yeah, I am reachable for anybody that wants to have sponsorship and get involved in supporting the channel. It's got to be the right kind of business, right kind of partners. So reach me. Not difficult to find me for DM, all those sorts of things. I'm on all kinds of social media. Guys, So programming notes, so Friday, there'll be practice. See if they use the stadium. Sometimes they will. We'll see if it's available. There is Disney on Ice coming, so I'm not sure if they'll be in the bubble or if they'll be in the stadium. So we'll find out in the morning where we're going. And we'll have coverage, of course, of practice. And we'll talk to Aziz Al-Shaair. I've got more articles coming at www.clicktohouston.com. Of course, on television Sunday from Nashville. Looks like with the government shutdown averted, now I'll be all set to go to Nashville and cover that game. So I'm excited to bring you guys coverage. And, of course, for Sports Sunday on KPRC2 with Randy McElvoy and Nick Mantis. And we got you covered. And, of course, we got you covered here on YouTube on my channel. So please watch, like, and subscribe. Guys, it helps a lot if you watch the longer form videos, not just the shorts. I like to post the shorts because I know you guys like those too. But what I do here, this is where these, this is the big picture. These are the insights, and this is the inside information. Videos of players are great. I know you guys like to watch videos of the players, but you also like information, I've been told. And I'm going to give you the latest and best information that I've got. So, yeah, please watch, like, subscribe, and it helps to watch the majority or the entire video if you have the time. So, guys, thanks so much. I look forward to our next conversation. We'll have more coverage coming Friday and, of course, over the weekend. And looking forward to this one. So we'll see. It's not necessarily the matchup, that everybody's circled on the calendar. The 4-5 Texans against the 1-8 Tennessee Titans. But, hey, there's always the Love You Blue rivalry between Amy Adams Strunk and the Texans and the uniforms and all that good stuff. So we'll see how that goes. And I don't know if there's going to be a lot of atmosphere at the Titan Stadium. We'll see. At least it's not going to be snowing. I've been there before when it's ice cold and it's difficult conditions for the players to play in. But, yeah, this one should be a great, clear fall day in Nashville, Tennessee. Nash Vegas, some people call it. And it's a quick trip for me. I'm in and I'm out. And so I'll be there probably less than 24 hours total. Yeah, actually I will. So, guys, excited. Got more to come, and appreciate your time. Thanks. Good night.